What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Lane Financial Group podcast. I have another very special guest for you guys today. This is one of my mentors. I bug him all the time with questions, and he's always very gracious to get back to me as soon as possible if he can't answer right then and there. Been in this business for a while, a great entrepreneurial story, even before Real Financial, that I think you guys will love to hear. I know I definitely like hearing his different stories and learning from him and all that. So without further ado, Mr. Evan Schlang, thank you and welcome for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate you doing this and having me on today.
Absolutely. So I normally start this with, where you from, what's your life story first, but I'm actually going to switch it up on you. I'm going to throw you a curveball here.
All right.
I need to know first and foremost, I need to know when and where and what was it that turned you into such a big Star Wars fan as well.
I have just I think really good memories growing up. My dad took me to episode one, two, and three. That was kind of my timeline there.
Mhm.
1999, I think it was like 2001, and so on. But yeah, just opening night of those, and there was always this game there that we'd always be so excited to play. It was yeah, you'd like battle Darth Vader
Mhm.
and fly around anyways. So just really good memories of that. And just kind of in a sense, the rest is history, right? It was buying, getting all the Legos and the toys and all that, and the fun lightsabers that would, the
Yeah.
slide out ones,
Yeah,
and
the good
yeah,
ones that
so
would welt you up.
exactly, yeah, yeah, and I have them to this day. My son was actually playing with one of them the other day, so yeah, it's fun.
No, I know the first time that we actually got to sit down and have a conversation was like the first thing we talked about because I saw,
Yep.
your usual office, you get your stuff behind you. And I've always wondered like because I remember my first moment. So I ask any of my friends that are like super into like we are like, do you even remember or was it just kind of like a thing that you just always were into? So I always get curious about because mine was episode two. And like the only thing I remember from the first time was watching Yoda and Count Dooku fight. But I
Yeah.
watched it with my sister, who's 6 years older, and my dad, and that was just like that core, like, whoa, like I don't know, you don't know how to explain. Just like I'm in. I love this.
Yep.
You know,
Yep. Heck yeah. We'll have to do another one of these when I'm back at my main office so everyone can see everything in
just
the
show off
background.
all the goodies.
Exactly.
All right, but so like I said, let's get to the typical like where are you from? Let's hear your story. I won't, like I did this, with a couple people, and I was telling like you can start as far back as you want to, whether just starting off working, go back to childhood, like whatever you're comfortable with sharing. But I want to hear about you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I might jump around a little as things come to
Mhm.
mind, but I'll kind of just try and start in the beginning. So technically, I was born in California when I was young, like two or three. My parents moved up to Washington State, so I usually just say kind of born and raised in Washington. But
Mhm.
yeah, grew up in Washington, and always had kind of this entrepreneurial spirit, and always wanted to try and figure out different business ideas and different things like this. I was always into technology, and so are my parents. My mom was a circuit board designer for Logitech for like 30 years, and my dad had website companies and a whole bunch of different things. But so I was always kind of into that technology, and growing up, I was flipping the Pokemon cards. As I got a little older, I was fixing and flipping Xboxes, and then when I turned 16, I was buying and selling cars, and I've had over 100 cars now, just kind of history of buying, fixing, flipping, driving for a while, selling them for profit, whatever it is. So that's kind of, my early entrepreneur side of things. So as things progressed, right, kind of get into the working years, let's say, right, I kind of worked a little bit of retail for a while, kind of like hourly minimum wage, with 16, 17, 18. Then I got more into sales, and that's when I started working at Verizon Wireless. And I was still doing a lot of stuff on the side. I was doing the drop shipping and the print on demand, and so on and so forth. And ended up, at Verizon Wireless being kind of that top sales guy. President's Cabinet, Winner's Circle. Went to Switzerland, Maui, and many other places. Kind of as the fruits of that labor, in a sense, right, of being in those circles and whatnot. But kind of around the time my son was born, which was 2017 is when he was born. But I was already, I started a bunch of Instagram pages and things. And one of them is, I'll give it a little shout out. I haven't posted for a long, long time, but it's a stormtrooper a day, right? So now this goes back to the Star Wars side. And at its peak, I grew that to about 150,000 just for that one page of followers there. And I was doing a lot of the selling of different products or reselling different things there. So that kind of went hand in hand with my
Mhm.
Star Wars passion. And over that time, being in that industry and or part of that niche or whatnot, I met a lot of really cool people there, and I got a lot of really cool collectibles. And some of those are what is normally displayed there in my office and whatnot. But I had, different food pages. One of them was flambe and still very active. I ended up selling that page to another guy. But anyways, it grew multiple hundreds of thousands of followers on different social media platforms. And I was still working at Verizon at this time. And I wanted to figure out how can I kind of re-harness my entrepreneur, side of everything where I could be at home more or make my own schedule to be around my newborn son and around my wife more, of course, and just all that. I'm very big about family and this kind of stuff. So uh, around kind of 2015, 2016, I launched my own marketing agency, known as kind of SMMA, social media marketing agency. And after I launched that, maybe literally like a month or two later, Ty Lopez, which is someone that I kind of looked up to entrepreneur wise and went through a lot of his courses, the 67 steps, a whole bunch of different things. He released a course, SMMA course. And I was like, okay, so I'm on to something here, So I basically took kind of my skills of growing social media pages and meta ads and Google ads and SEO and all this stuff. And as I was still working at Verizon, I started going kind of to local businesses of doctors, dentists, lawyers, so on and so forth, and basically just said, hey, here's some Instagram pages of mine, here's some marketing I do, here's stuff I've done with drop shipping, and just kind of let them know, hey, this is what I'm doing for
Mhm.
myself. Would you guys be interested in having some more people come through the door? And basically started getting, retainers for that kind of, reoccurring, maybe 1,500, 2,500, 5,000, depending on the scope of work, developing websites and again, doing ads and different things for them.
Mhm.
So that kind of that proof of concept was there. So as our son was being born, I took there's a full kind of 12 weeks you could take for the kind of the maternity leave side of things. 4 weeks was paid, 8 weeks wasn't. But I basically took that time to make sure that this was really working and pay the bills and all this kind of stuff. Sorry, kind of cut out for a sec.
No, you're
Pay the
good.
bills and all this kind of stuff. And so with that, basically there's 2 weeks left of that 12 weeks, and I just let Verizon know, hey, I'm not coming back, right? And
Mhm.
so kind of fast forward in a sense, I ran that agency for over a decade, and of course continued honing my skills and this kind of stuff. And right around, I think it was 2022, early 2023 is when I had heard about Real Financial. I've been a longtime follower of Brad Lee, probably since, 2017, 2018. And I just liked how he was just spoke his mind, very authentic, very open, didn't care what other people think, right? And I think that's why a lot of other people like him too, because he's just a real person, right? And so yeah, there was that podcast with him and Sean Mike talking about, Sean Mike was telling him on the first one, like, hey, you should really look into financial services and this kind of stuff. And then it was about 6 months later, I think roughly, that they did another podcast. And he at that point, said, hey, everyone, I'm launching Real Financial, which was under the FFL umbrella at that time. And that's when I joined up. So kind of, middle of 2023, I joined Real Financial early when it, started. And that's just been my full time ever since. I went full on it. Again, utilizing my marketing skills, that I worked on over a
Yeah.
decade, right? to run my own ads, and kind of started with the final expense, mortgage protection, went into IUL, and now kind of my main focus is the annuity side, and of course training and building other agents. So I think that kind of covers everything. But yeah, that's kind of the beginning to now, and have another little one as well now. So got two kiddos and been
Yeah,
married since 2013. So going on 13 years now. So yeah, yeah.
that's beautiful. I'm at the second, and I'm just crazy how fast it goes. You know,
Yeah, it goes really fast. So yeah, make sure you
very.
try, and it's hard sometimes, but try and be as present as possible, because it definitely can be sad. You kind of looking back, and I'm very happy because when I look back, I know that I've been here for a lot of things that most dads aren't able to be there
Mhm.
for. But it doesn't make it any easier. It's a good way of
Yep,
saying it.
absolutely. I want to backtrack. I'm a kind of a two-pronged question, so sorry,
Yeah.
but I want to ask a little bit about selling an Instagram page, like kind of how that works. Um, and then how much of your experience in that marketing, especially through social media, how much of that has helped you in since you started with Real Financial? So
Yeah.
two-pronged question, but
Yeah, yeah. So the selling of the Instagram page can be a little stressful. It was kind of the wild, wild west when I was doing it. There was
mhm,
no kind of what's the right
no
terminology?
guidelines on it.
Well, yeah, there's not really guidelines, and also there was no like holding company, right?
Mhm,
Meaning, I kind of just, in a sense, had to trust, right? Like, they had to trust to send me the money first,
mhm,
and then I'd send them the logins, or I have to trust to send them the logins, and they send me the money, or send me half, and are they going to send me the
mhm,
rest of it? Now this day and age, there's so many different websites where you can basically kind of post, like list it for
mhm,
sale, and then that company facilitates getting the money. Once the money's there, then they release the money to to the seller, and then release the
mhm.
logins to the buyer, right? So
And what year was
um,
it when you sold it? Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
oh no, you're good. You're good. So I've bought and sold many pages. Like, for example, there's another one I started from zero called Star Wars Jokes. And that one I sold, when it was at a couple
Package.
100,000 followers. So yeah, so there's been many, and I have been burned on some, and
Hmm.
it, again, it's just part of business. It's all good.
Yep.
But kind of through I would say 20, maybe 2018 through kind of the 2020 time. And more recently, probably 2021 is when I had sold the flambe page. It was a food, kind of a daily
Hmm.
posting of different food items. Flambe is that cooking style, right? With
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
fire. Yep. Anyways, so yeah, so kind of through that, we'll say 2018 to 2021 roughly is kind of when I was offloading some of them. I still have a stormtrooper a day. That's kind of been that was my passion. That's where I started. If you scroll all the way to the bottom of a stormtrooper a day, it was me daily with a helmet on doing different things. Right, that's where it started. But you can. There's only so much content you could do with that.
Hmm.
Right. It then ended up turning into more of a content curation side of things. I'd find real cool posts of different Mandalorians or stormtroopers or
Hmm.
whatever, and maybe give some different info or value on stuff, or just generally built a community around it.
Yeah.
So that's the main one I still have. I usually will post something on May 4th. That's May the 4th be with you, right?
Have
So
to.
yeah, yeah.
Have to. Are you really running a Star Wars page? Like.
Exactly, right. And then now, to answer the second part of that question, right, coming into to kind of all those experiences, right, there was
Mhm.
the learning about different times to post, and the algorithms changed a lot over time. It used to be a true chronological feed, right? Like, you'd post something, and whatever time that was, as somebody scrolled, that would show it in
Mhm.
order. Now it's really more of a engagement focused thing, meaning, or if somebody likes that post, right, it's going to show that person more posts like that. and
Hmm.
your feed isn't chronological, right? It's all based off of your actions of are what are you interested in? That's what you're going to be shown,
Hmm.
right? So, which can be good and bad, right? It's a confirmation bias focus type of
Yeah.
thing. So if you know, I hear people talk about, oh, my feed is always doom and gloom, and I'm like, well, my feed is always positivity and great
Yeah.
quotes and business, and so it's really what people, you know, look at is what they're shown now. So I'd say that the experience has allowed me to kind of be very adaptable, right? There's
Hmm.
a saying that the most adaptable survive, right? There's this bird called the blue-footed booby bird. It's the most adaptable creature, and it's survived. It's one of the oldest creatures out there, but it's a bird. But anyways, so you know, it's allowed me to just kind of pivot and test
Hmm.
different things. But there was just kind of, you know, tangible things, right? Like how to run Facebook ads and what buttons to click, and there's I literally have millions of dollars of marketing, you know, behind all these ads, and not all those were my dollars, of course, right? If I was running stuff for a lawyer or something and they're spending 3 5 grand a month on you know, their own ads, right? I'm
Hmm.
including those kind of things, but it allowed me to take my skills and then scale them and understand the market shifts and how things went, which then allowed me, of course, to already understand all that technology when it came to the
Hmm.
financial services side, you know, and then apply that and then just continue testing and refining, right?
Hmm. Absolutely. Um, yeah, and that's something, like as you know, like that's why I started doing this. Like it's trying to get into that kind of like social media marketing thing, which I didn't. To be honest, I still don't know what I'm doing. It's that learning process
We
of
all got to start somewhere, you know?
exactly like my wife would make a joke like I post once before, starting Real Financial and doing this. I might post once a year. That's if I would.
Yeah.
That's if people were lucky, and it was usually like I say once, but it was like birthdays and anniversary. That's it.
Yeah.
That was where the line stopped. Um, but actually, I want to ask one more real quick personal question before we kind of get into a little bit of the business.
Yeah.
And I know this from my side is there's been a couple times where my wife has told me like if I have to hear Star Wars one more time, I'm gonna slap you. Like I'm gonna throw the TVs out. Like does your wife ever get super annoyed with the constant? And then when I say, let me phrase this properly too, like the over, like compli like going too far into it, like with the books, the comics, like the stuff that like didn't have anything to do with the movies that everybody knows. Like, is your wife into Star Wars like that too, or is she kind of like, okay, honey, cool, like,
Yeah, yeah. So here's what I'll say is she's into it, not definitely not as much as me, but I think the kids, you know, that's
mhm,
kind of helped that case, let's say,
yep,
in a way, right? Because there's like the 5 minute bedtime stories, right? Like all
yep,
those different cool books, and then taking the kids through the movies and you know, showing them all that, and then taking them to, of
mhm,
course, like, you know, watching Mandalorian on, you know,
going to Disney.
the series, and then going to Disney, going to movies, right? For like the new Mandalorian
Mhm,
and stuff. So I think being that does kind of add more a family side
mhm,
of things. It kind of ties it all together. You know, I especially when I was running a stormtrooper a day, and really heavy into it. You know, I'll say it this way, she's always seen me and known, you know,
mhm,
entrepreneurial wise, that I've always been very successful with what I put my mind to. You know, and that doesn't mean that I haven't had failures or
yeah,
you know, made mistakes, but it means
you always
that
try.
yeah, I've always tried and persevered and continued down the road, right? I'm able to really hold a lot of uncertainty, and that's what makes, you know, an
Mhm,
entrepreneur successful is knowing there's a lot of uncertainty, you know, cash
yeah,
flow or you know, bills or this, whatever it is. It's being able to be in, you know, yeah,
roller coaster.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, whenever I'd be, you know, and I'll say in the beginning, you know, like for example, some of my first posts was when we went to Hawaii, right, on a
Mhm,
stormtrooper day, and again, I had my shadow trooper helmet, and so that was fun, you know, kind of traveling with that, and people are commenting on it. So, you know, she's just always been very supportive, but I don't think I also didn't necessarily, not saying this like you did this or going over or something, but I've always been really good about kind of keeping, business and personal and this kind
Mhm.
of separate, but I didn't like keep that separate, like in that kind of direct terms of like a split.
Yeah, yeah,
But she knew that I was kind of fusing one of the things I'm passionate about with also making money and,
yeah.
this kind excuse me, this kind of stuff. Yeah.
And did you guys when did you meet your wife, like in high school, or was it when you were like a young adult? Like what
Yeah, yeah. So
when did
I
you guys
met
meet each
her
other?
when I was 19. So it
Okay.
was my senior year of high school. And she's actually a little bit older than me, so she was already going to college. But I met her through some mutual friends in 2010, and
Okay.
the rest is history in a sense. I asked her to marry me, and actually our kind of our engagement anniversary was July 9th, so just 5 days ago. But yeah, so yeah, that was our engagement anniversary,
Okay.
July of 2020, excuse me, 2012, and
Hmm.
then we were married September of 2013.
13. That's beautiful. So she kind of probably figured it out pretty quick that that was something that you did
Yep,
have a big
yep, oh yeah,
passion and love for.
yep, yep. Star Wars and cars; those are my two big passions.
That's awesome. I love that. Like I said, my wife has put up with so much Star Wars stuff over the years. Like I've had to kind of like try to like I try now. I'm older and I understand a little bit better than I did when I was 19, but it's like
Yep,
I try to separate as much as I can because she's
yep,
just not into it like we are.
yeah, exactly. Which is okay.
Yeah, everybody likes their thing.
Yep,
That's why I always get curious with other Star Wars fans, because Star Wars fans are like Trekkies in their own
yep.
way.
Oh yeah,
Like we are. Like,
yeah. And my
a
dad's a
lot, if you
Trekkie,
don't
which
like it,
is
everybody's
which is awesome.
like,
Yep,
why are you that into it? Like what?
yep,
Like,
yep. Yeah,
um,
my dad has a signed Spock poster and a bunch of stuff. Yeah, and that's I never really got down that rabbit hole in a sense as much, but same thing. I've got a lot of memories of watching Star Trek Voyager and all that
yeah.
stuff. Growing up and being so excited. Oh, the new episode's out, and we all sit
Mhm.
down and watch it. And there's no on demand. There was no
Oh yeah, back
recording.
in
It
the
was like
day.
it's on. You got to watch it. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
funny. I was literally just like a week or two ago having a conversation with my son about that, about just like how different it was. Like, obviously I'm younger than you are, but like even just in the, that early between 2000 and 2010, like if you had on demand, you were doing all right for yourself. Like not
yep,
everybody had it where
yep.
it's like, dude, you had to know the schedule on the TV to watch your cartoons every
Yep.
Saturday and Sunday. And if
Yep,
you missed it,
exactly.
you better hope one of your friends at school knew and saw it.
Yep.
You were completely lost,
Yeah,
and
and
it
then when
was
the
like
DVR
mind
came
blowing.
out,
Oh,
yeah, that was awesome. Oh, I can record
yeah.
this. Oh, nice.
And we were talking like we were talking about like Netflix, because
Yep.
we can go back and now
Yep.
with streaming, you can go back and watch stuff from the 90s and the
Yep.
2000s and just 3 clicks, you're there. Like,
Yep.
dude, when I was your age, we had to go to Blockbuster. And that
Yep.
was that was
Yep.
that was an event in our house. Like
Yeah.
you went to
Same. Same.
Blockbuster, it was like, whoa, like did dad get
Yep.
a raise or something? Like, what's
Yeah.
going on here? You
Yeah.
know?
Again, so many great memories of going to Blockbuster and
Oh
oh,
yeah.
you can rent the game or the movie or
Yeah.
this and you had to pass for a certain amount and then I know it turned into Redbox. I mean obviously
Yeah.
Blockbuster's still there, but Redbox came out and yeah. Anyways,
I remember Redbox. That was a big deal.
yeah, it
Same
was.
with Netflix. Remember they used to put the
Yep.
Netflix in front of like a CVS. Like,
Yep, yep, exactly, exactly. And you get the DVD from Netflix, and once you send it
yep,
back, you got your next one. Oh yeah,
yep. Oh man, that's awesome.
that's good memories.
Oh, the best. I wish we would go back to it. I'm tired of Netflix.
Yep,
All right, let's move it here into like a little bit of business because this is what this podcast is about. I'm gonna start off with a different question that I haven't asked anybody yet, but I want to know your Brad Lee influence when like obviously, me and you have talked about this. Like I started doing this because of him. You started doing it because of him. Same thing, watching the podcast.
yep,
How much of it, like here's a better question. Who called you first? Did you do it kind of like I did, where I saw it on an Instagram ad, I clicked the link, I sign up, next thing I know, Derek's calling.
right.
Was it similar to you, or like how did you get into Real Financial, and how immediately were you able to have that interaction with Brad?
Yeah, yeah. So I'd say it wasn't an ad. It was just this general podcast. I had been following kind of him in general on Instagram, and then following his
Mhm.
Dropping Bombs podcast and whatnot. So I'd kind of listen to those episodes randomly. Usually when I was working out or something, I like to either listen to
Mhm.
like audiobooks or podcasts, and sometimes I'll listen to music. But in general, I listened to that first one, and then it was 6 months later I watched the next one. And I'm just naturally a curious person on especially different business opportunities and this kind of stuff. And it was free to join, so I was like, oh, well, let me just join and see what's financial services all about. So I joined. I think technically it was like October of 2023, and nobody called me. There's really nothing. Technically, Brad Blumquist, which you know him,
Mhm.
he's still in the business with us,
Yep.
right? He's
Just did
my
a podcast a
upline.
couple days ago, so the viewers should
Yeah,
know him.
yep, yep, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, he's a great guy, a ton of great information. But him and I have become basically brothers through everything. And
Mhm.
just like any business, right? There's ups and downs and different stuff. And not anything with Brad Blumquist. I'm just saying, like, we've
Same
weathered the
here.
different storms, right? But I didn't really go all in a sense until I sold my first policy January of 2024 to one of my parents' friends, and it was a whole life policy. And it was kind of, it was amazing. Like, whoa, I just, made, I think it was like $1,500 or something. And I did like 45 minutes of work or something. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I see this. Okay. So Brad Lee, I didn't really, I guess, talk directly with him for a lot. He did, definitely, show up to like our national calls and different stuff,
Mhm.
but there was a couple other leaders running it at that time. But it was more once I kind of started, doing my sales and performance
Forming,
right
yeah.
on, kind of really making a name for myself, and I started having a little bit of interactions with him, and then I, started to go into the in person events and got to meet him, which is really cool. And now I'm one of the main leaders here at Real Financial. So him and I will text and talk all the time, and we'll have, we're on different Zooms and whatever, right?
Mhm.
So, but really, what had me join what was again really him. It was him being an authentic person. Just you can just really tell he means what he says, and he's trying to help others. I didn't see it as like a job, or like oh, I'm just joining to try something different. It was, hey, there's a great opportunity here, and I get to get mentored by Brad
Mhm.
Lee, right? And he gets paid, per podcast, like 25K plus, right? And he gets 50 or 100K per, going to these different
Yeah.
events to speak. So it's like, if I can be in this and just do what I'm good at anyways, selling and talking with people, and I get to be influenced by him, and it's a win-win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I'm gonna say this too, like for anybody that has listened to every episode that I have done, I know it's very few for now. I've had five people that we all work together that have all said the same thing about him in different ways. Every single person said that. I try to tell people that and they go, well, sure, okay, you're just saying it. It's like, no, I've had five different people all say it within a different way. Like, so if you're looking to get in this business, and Evan, I want you to touch on this as well. This is the place you want to go to because the
Yep.
guy at the top, the guy that runs the show, is authentic about it. I always say it,
Yep.
I say it in every episode. He always tells us, you're going to do this ethically because that's how he would do it if he was
Yep.
in our shoe. Like if he was starting this out by himself with the pen. Like
Yep.
he's not out writing the policies every day, not like we are. But if he was starting this by himself and wasn't hiring anybody, he would do it ethically. Everybody, single person will tell you that. And I want you to kind of touch on that point. Like, how many times does he say that?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, all the time. He talks about, first off, like kind of the heavenly energy and being
Mhm.
grateful, and putting others ahead of yourself and thinking positive and optimistic. But it's not coming from like a fluff place, right? And that's just, you can
Genuine.
naturally, yeah, it's genuine, and you can feel that as a human, right? There's different vibrations that people are at. and authenticity and gratitude and all this is one of the highest vibrations. And he said many times, and I agree with this, right? We're looking for quality over quantity. And that's why, you're going to have a lot of like-minded people that want to help a bunch of other people. And of course, in that process, we're bringing value to the marketplace. We're going to make great money, but we're not like slimy, like, oh, quick sell something and oh, it's going to charge back and this and that, right? Like, we're very big about do the right thing for the client so you can lay your head on the pillow at night, and know you did the right thing. And sometimes, the right thing was, hey, your setup's perfect. There's nothing I would change. Continue on with what you're doing, right? So it's just always doing that. And I do believe in, good karma and all this kind of stuff, right? So, I'll always, lead with doing whatever's right for the person in front of me. And I know it all works out in the end.
And that's that last point that you just made. That was one of the first things that you told me when I first signed on was if you're looking at somebody, if they have an existing policy that you're looking at for them and ours doesn't make sense and theirs is good, do not touch it. That
Yeah.
was the first thing, literally one of the first things you told me. And that stuck with me. Is like, oh, like, okay, like they weren't kidding, when you do, hey, I'm interested, you do the interview and oh yeah, this place is great. Like every job on the planet does.
Yeah.
But then you get into a private meeting, you're already on board, and they go, hey, don't just make the dollar. Doesn't matter. Like we're not like I always tell people, obviously we're not a charity.
Yeah.
We do get compensated for this, but if it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense, then I'm not doing that, especially if it's somebody you know.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Big
that's a
time.
big one, you
Yeah.
know.
And I've had so many referrals from people that I did a policy review for them and they were in a great spot. And near the end of the conversation, they're like, hey, my sister, brother, cousin, whatever,
Yeah.
they have, XYZ. Would you look at theirs as well? And then some of those did turn into deals. And so it's just doing the right thing for the person ultimately leads to what, we all want money, right? Like you said, it's not a
Yeah.
charity. But if you lead with money and you're chasing money, it's going to slip through your hands. But if you lead with value, the universe will reward that value. Usually 10x, in my opinion,
Yeah.
of what you put out, right? So if you
Well,
just
and like you
continue to
said, you
do the
get
right
referrals.
thing,
So they go, hey man, he didn't even try to sell it to me. He said I was good, but you need to talk to him.
yep,
Like
yep,
that's a big I've heard you say that 100 times over.
yep,
Like
exactly,
the biggest part of what we do is your referrals.
yep,
You if by one person, they're gonna go tell everybody that they know. Hey man, you
yep,
gotta talk to this, whether it's me, you, Derek, Larry, Brad, whoever. Do it the right way. People are gonna go tell their friends because people like to talk,
yep.
you
They
know,
do. They do.
especially if
It's
it's
just like
something
when you
that
go see a
helps.
good movie, or something. You see a good
Yeah.
movie, or you've got a good, a product you like, some, whatever it is, and you like it, you tell your friends, right? And then they look and you send them the link and whatever, right? And that word spreads. And I think a just quick point I want to talk about is the culture at Real Financial, right? That's really what we're talking about. We're talking about a group of like-minded people here that are all trying to do the right thing for other people. And we've had some bad actors in, and they're not here because we've gotten rid of them, right? And they just naturally leave because they don't align with the values and align in generally just with our vibration, with our
Yeah.
energy, right? So yeah, culture is huge for us.
And I won't, obviously, we're not going to say the names or anything, but like
Yeah,
that happened very early on in me being there.
yeah,
You know, the one, at least the one I know, right? And
yeah, yeah,
I told a couple of people, obviously without naming the name, just like, man, like those are two guys. Basically, there was one dude ahead of them, and he told them to hit the bricks because they were trying to scam a bunch of people. And he's like, I'm not putting that on my like, no, that's not what we do here. And that made
yeah,
me, as a new person in this industry, very comfortable.
yeah,
And it gave me that extra like, okay, yeah, this is because I'm sure you might. I don't know if you did or not. I don't. I did when I came in. I had some doubts. I won't even like
yeah,
never hid from it because I've said this to you. This industry has had a bad rep for a very very long time. So you have that like, man, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. Like I got kids and a wife. Like, am I doing the right thing? And I know they're telling me this, but how do I know? And then what happened. I was like, ooh, like, all right. Like, yeah, I like that,
yeah.
because it's authentic. It's Brad.
Yeah. And you
Right.
got to think about this too, as far as Brad goes, is it's a personal brand, right? Bradley is
Oh
a
yeah,
it's him. He's a personal brand,
absolutely.
and that's his name, right? And so anything that he does in business, he doesn't want to compromise that
100%.
his personal brand. I mean, he's got like, I think it's like 7 million followers across all his social medias,
Yeah.
and huge, I think it's million plus subscribers now on dropping bombs and so on and so forth. So yeah, he's not going to do anything, on this end to jeopardize the personal brand, which even gives
100%.
me more confidence too, right? So yeah,
Well, I remember he said it, you know, right after that, and he was like, "It's my name on this."
yeah,
He's like, I put 30 years building my brand. You can't find a video of anybody saying that he's a bad guy. You just can't. Like,
yeah,
'cause I tried. I ain't gonna like I tried.
yeah,
I liked, I listened to his podcast and all that, but when I joined, I was like, man, I got to do a little more research. You literally can't find it, and he was like, I'm not gonna ruin that. Like
yeah,
I remember he told you, he's like, that goes for any of you. There's only one person guaranteed to be here, and it was him, and he's not
yep,
wrong. you
yeah.
know,
That's true. Very true.
and that made me love it even more because like, he didn't put a bunch of fluff on it. He just straight up told us all. He's like, there's one person guaranteed to be in this company, and it's the guy talking on the phone right now. And I was like, I love that about,
Yep,
and you
yep,
obviously, I haven't gotten to meeting him yet, in person. You have, and I'm sure he's probably the same person on his podcast that he is off the camera. And you could probably
yep.
attest to that.
Yeah, he is. He is. He's the same exact guy. What you see on podcast, on so on and so forth, it's exactly him. And
Yeah.
and early on, even when I joined up, there was somebody that asked him about building a personal brand, and he's like, and I do sit in front of a camera, and sometimes I record content,
Mhm.
but he
You
really
do
talks
great on
about the
that, by the way.
yeah, I appreciate that. But he talks about like, hey, just have someone follow you around and record what you're doing. So literally, his content is someone following him around, and they chop it up and post it, right? Like they're just recording his life, right?
Yeah.
It's a real life reality show in a sense,
Yep.
right? So what you get on there is what you get in person, and yeah, that's why it's so authentic.
Yeah. And I was talking to Derek a couple days ago. And we were talking about him, and we're going to be in Vegas next month for one of our in-person training days. And me and him were just talking, and I was telling him how I thought it was funny. He was like, "What's that?" And I was like, "Well, I learned who Brad Lee was because he had Mickey Mays, who was notorious gambler,
Yeah.
his podcast." I was like, and then the first time I'm gonna get to meet him is in Vegas of all places. Like it made me laugh thinking about it. I was like, I wouldn't even know who he was if it wasn't for a dude that notoriously made money from gambling in the city of gambling. And I get to
Yep.
meet the guy that's now, my boss per se. And
Yep.
just I've always thought that was funny that it's there, for me
I love
personally.
that. I love that. And I'm
Um,
excited for you to meet him in person too. I think
I
this will be
am too
awesome.
ecstatic. Um, Actually, let's go on to that real quick. This is a different. Tell me or tell the viewers and me about your first event in person with this
Yeah.
company.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that was kind of middle-ish of 2024. Yeah, I think that's right.
Mhm.
But basically, it was kind of a similar type of training day. And this actually when we were doing a little bit of stuff with Andy Elliott at that time. So we went to Andy Elliott's place in Arizona. There, the
Mhm.
Lions Den is what it's called. But so got to meet Andy Elliott at the same time, which was cool.
Very
But
cool.
yeah, it was kind of similar type of training day, but the big thing I'll say about in-person events is it's just nice to get around people. Like you can feel energy through Zoom too, at least I can, but it's just different when you can
Yeah.
put your arm around someone or talking, just kind of just hang out a little, and it's
Yeah.
fun, after the event and stuff, going out to dinner and just hanging out and talking and just being human with another person,
Yeah.
right? So I think
Larry said
just
something very similar when I talked with
yeah.
him on this podcast. I recorded with him this morning, and he kind of said something similar. He was like, just being at any event, like whether it's with us or anything else, he said the same. He's like, you got to go because a human to human face to face is different.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that, it's good and bad in a sense, the way that, things kind of went down with 2020 and 2021 with COVID and so on. I mean, it it opened up this industry, right? Because
Yeah.
before there wasn't really any Zoom stuff. There was no
Yeah.
e-app. There was no digital signing. It
Working
was
from
you
home was
had
an
your little
adventure.
area. Yeah, you could go to your little area. You had to drive. Maybe the person wasn't there. You drove 2 hours.
Yep.
They're not at their house or they're hiding in. They're not anyways. So you just have it's so much more efficient of an industry now, but also that does open it up for same thing, bad actors and different
Mhm.
stuff, there's again pros and cons to everything. But I
And
think
that's any
anytime you can
business.
get, yeah, any business, but I think anytime you can get in person for anything, an event, a work thing, whatever it is, it hits different in a sense, if we want to
Yeah,
say it that way.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, and that's I've talked with a couple people that I'm, wanting to come on board with us. I think they'd be good partners. And I'm like, guys, like, we've talked about it. I'm like, this wasn't even an option. Like when I started working, like it was pre-COVID. I was like, nobody worked from home unless
Yeah.
you were the boss.
Yeah.
And I'm sure like in this industry, I just logistically think about it. I'm like, man, how many people were doing this, but you could only work in your state?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it was, you were working in an office. It was almost captive, if you want to say, where
Yeah.
now, like we can all do anything in any state.
Yeah. And we're
Yourself,
licensed in
myself,
all
we're
50
all on the
states.
same, as
So
you famously told me, and I loved when you said it, we're all here. There's
yeah.
one playing field. Like, obviously, like there's different levels to it and all that, but like we can all do the same business.
Yep. We
There's
all have
no
the same
restrictions.
opportunity. So true.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think that's a great thing that I'm sure a lot of that had to do with COVID and people having to stay home. And they're like, well, I got to eat.
Yep.
Well, download this thing called Zoom that had been around for a decade and nobody knew about.
Yep.
It basically it killed Skype, but
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And
you
Skype was never good, anyways. But
yeah, it wasn't.
yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that um coincidentally, I guess the way to put it, like the pandemic, I was not saying anything controversial, people have their own opinions about it.
Yeah.
Do you think for this business specific that it just like it was like a floodgate of wow, we can do so much more, and this business famously has produced more millionaires than any industry. Do you think that that added to that of like a lot of people like yourself, myself, and all of our colleagues being like, oh, like I can sit, in my case, I can sit in my basement in Michigan and sell a policy in Hawaii. Like,
Yep.
do you think, you know, whatever your opinion of the pandemic was, it kind of opened a new door to make
Yeah,
this
it
even
did.
better?
Yeah, I mean, just strategically thinking about it, like Real Financial, we're licensed in all 50 states, right? And to your point, yeah, you can
Yep.
sell in multiple states. You can take advantage of different time zones as well,
Yeah.
right? Like again, I was in Washington State when I started, so I was able to at 5, 6 o'clock or 4, 5, 6, whatever. I was running 7, 8, 9 p.m. appointments on the East Coast, and then I could run some more evening appointments for Washington or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So just opened up a lot of flexibility, optimization of the time. So yeah, I think it was a major disruptor. But whenever there's disruption, that creates opportunity, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, so I think that it really allowed this business to explode and be more refined, more optimized, this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. And then, so we kind of touched on it a little bit, but just on that kind of branch of the tree. If you could explain the real financial opportunity to somebody that's maybe kicking the can and coming on into this business, why why would you like how would you explain it to somebody? Like let's say somebody's reached out and say, hey, I'm interested. Um, what are you going to tell them about the opportunity? And then
Yeah.
why are you going to say, hey, you need to come to us and don't go nowhere else?
Yeah. Yeah. So, when I just think about Real Financial in general, and even if we just want to say, time and business in general, time's going to go by no matter what. So
Mhm.
if you don't need to like quit your job and go full time real financial, right? You can definitely do this part time and start learning. And I think that's the most important thing is just being always looking for new opportunities and trying to test different things. And this industry isn't for everyone, right? So not saying that every single person's to be successfthe, but there's plenty of people that I've hired that I know you're a diesel mechanic, but people that were working with in the like oil refineries and a
Yep.
whole bunch of different things, right? And
Airports.
airports and
Yeah.
all this different stuff, and they're killing it here, right? So, but real financial as a whole, I think there's a few kind of main points. First off, I think Bradley is such a core piece of this company. He provides leads, agent leads to the people that are actually out there, doing stuff, right? So like I get, for example,
Mhm.
potential people that want to join, and I get to call them and interact with them and talk to them about the opportunity. So he's kind of that X factor there, right? And of course we get his mentorship and training, and we get access to like his, $5,000, course and things for free because we're part of this. But that's kind of the first thing is just the leader of the ship, or the captain of the ship in a sense. But when it comes to like compensation and culture and just kind of the whole picture, right? Like we do have the highest true team builder type of comp, like true generational overrides that last forever. We everybody has the same opportunity, so you can get to the exact same comp that I'm at, and I'll still have those overrides forever, meaning I don't lose. And this gets a little more into the terminology of people that might not know this from the industry, but some of the other IMOs, the independent marketing agencies, and I'm not going to say any names. I'm just saying like some of them, they're holding their people down because if they promote that person up and their comp gets to the same, now they don't get any more spread on that person, and they basically lose all the income from that team they built. So they're not incentivized to build where we are incentivized to build. And, I really want people to know, like, you don't need to hire anybody to make money with us, right? Like, this isn't a Ponzi, it's
Yeah.
not an MLM. Like, you can come on and sell your own stuff, right? Like, if you just went and work for a State Farm or Farmers or Geico or whatever, you get leads and sell, right? But the freedom really does come from team building because first off, again, the more value you bring, the more money you make, right? So you're not only bringing more value to the agent, but you're also bringing more value to the marketplace, right? You're multiplying your time. We all only have 24 hours, but if I have 10 agents, right, now I have 240 hours of influence per day, right? And 100 agents, 2,400 hours. And you can see how that scales. And so you're just naturally bringing more value. And as you're helping this new agent, and we're here to help too, right? Like you, Jacob, you don't know everything, right? But you have Derek and I and Brad and all these other people that help support your agents. So,
And
don't,
willingly,
yeah,
I'm sorry,
willingly.
I don't want to
Yeah.
cut you off. No, this is your answer, but this, me and Larry talked about this because he said kind of the same thing, like with the culture and everybody wanting to help each other. It's not a dog eat dog thing.
Yeah.
Like, how many times have I called you or texted you and Derek, and it'll be 11 o'clock on the East Coast,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you guys will like, even if you don't respond to the call, be like, hey, dude, like laying in bed, what's up? Like, what do you need? Like just to kind of reach that point, somebody like myself who is a new agent learning, like I want to give you the flowers of like that is a real thing that I can vouch for because you've done it for me. So sorry, I didn't
I
mean to cut you
appreciate
off.
that. Yeah, no, you're totally good. Yeah, I appreciate that. And the big thing that we always push, especially to new agents, is like, hey, don't put yourself on an island, right? We've got plenty of resources here. Don't put yourself on an island. I'm not going to swim out to you if you're out in the water. You got to swim to me, right? I can't force
Reach
you to
out.
do stuff, right? But we're here to help, and we don't get paid for that. Yeah, we get overrides or spread like when you sell something, but that's good because now you made money that helped you support your family, and that of course is our reward, if you want to say that, of helping that agent, right? And to that point, I'm at this level and you get to that level, that I don't lose that override. I unlock another piece that continues to pay me. So I'm incentivized to lift you up and promote you and get you, to where you want to be. But I don't want, at the team building side to scare somebody away, because we have plenty of just, solo producers that kill it. They make multiple six
Yep.
figures and they're doing their thing, right? And I think that's great. But really kind of, more than Bradley and the culture and the comp and all that, it's really our training, right? We have basically a three, kind of what we call three-prong approach. So we have Lightspeed VT, which is really where Bradley made his, millions and millions of dollars. He has, Grant Cardone and Tony Robbins and all these kind of, big business guys and influential guys.
PBD.
Yeah, PBD. They use his what's called Lightspeed VT, Lightspeed Virtual Training. That's his online training platform, very interactive. We have a bunch of training videos in there, and we're always updating and doing things there. But that's one kind of on-demand way. Secondly, we have, calls basically every single day throughout the week, different training calls that also we open up for questions and very interactive there. And then third, which is what we've kind of already been talking about, is kind of that one-on-one, right? I know we've done many one-on-ones. You call me, you text me, which is totally great, right? We're here to help. So we really, Bradley uses terminology, and I think it's great. We put the agents first, right? So we say real financial, where the agents come first, because we know that if we can lift those agents up and get them to where they need to be, naturally the marketplace is going to get rewarded from that.
Absolutely. And on that, like, well, two things. Like one, I've Brad has said it on our national call. He started because he looked at the landscape and was like, there's no company that rewards the agents properly.
Yeah.
For paraphrasing, lack of a better term, what he's
Yeah.
exactly said, but that was basically the gist of it. It was like agents weren't getting paid. Like they were getting paid, but they weren't getting paid the way they should get paid.
Yeah.
And that's a big, as you all know, that's a big distinction.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
for anybody, who maybe new or doesn't know, just in terms of me, Evan, and I'll use Derek, like Evan, Derek, me. Like just in terms of like who came first, who trained who kind of thing, right? Me and Derek still do, and I'm not even in training anymore. We still talk once a week. We do our weekly business partner meeting. And I know Derek still does them with you because he's
Yeah.
told me that. Because when I got out of my training, he was like, hey, I still talk with Evan every week, or at least try to. Like,
Yeah.
let's keep doing that. I was like, yeah, no problem. And we still we talk, we and now it's not so much as training. It's like, hey, what's going on? Where do we need help? So the training doesn't stop.
Yeah.
I mean, it stops in theory, but again, like I know I can call you, I can call Larry, I can call Brad. Obviously, I called Derek first. I bother him more than anybody. But I can just pick up the phone and text or call anybody in our company at any time of the day and hey, I need help. I'm lost. And that person's going to help because again, it's not dog eat dog.
Yeah.
And that's a
Yeah.
big
And
thing. Like
and
I had a friend that did a hiring interview who didn't believe me. And that's why he didn't join. He's like, I don't believe you. I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, like this is not dog eat dog. Nobody cared. Like, obviously there's that
there's
competitive,
competition, yeah, which is
yeah,
fine.
it's a
And it's
healthy
healthy
competition.
competition. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
want to be obviously you want to be here. Like I'll even openly say it. I've told Derek before. Every week I see you on our weekly level. You're here. You're either one or two, sometimes three. You're always, and I'm like, I want that. Like I want me and Evan to be sitting there and be like 50 cents apart from each other.
Yeah.
Like, like obviously it's not like I don't want you to fall off, but it's like I want to do that.
Well, and that's the same thing I want, right? Our whole goal is to
Yeah,
duplicate ourselves. And I want every single person that I hire or that's a part of my team to do better than me, because that just
exactly.
is proof in the pudding in a sense. But also it's the whole long-term point is to develop hundreds or thousands of people, hundreds or multiple thousands of people
Yep.
that can kill it as same or better, or maybe some are less, some are more, whatever it is. But we're talking about major multiplication of everything, and
It's
that's where the real
replicating what
wealth is built.
works.
Yeah. And we have all the systems and processes already dialed in. So, really, in the end, I'm just farther down the road than you. And it's very
Yeah,
easy for me to look back, right? We can't connect the dots forward, we can connect them backwards.
yeah,
So, I can easily tell you, hey, don't take a left there, go right. Or, hey, there's a pothole there, or there's a landmine,
yep,
avoid that one, So, yeah. Yeah.
exactly. And that's something that, you know, and I appreciate your side of like what the opportunity is because I've asked everybody. And the number one thing that gets said is culture. That's
Yeah.
that it comes up every time. And if it hasn't, somebody needs to go find it, clip it, and send it to me. I'm gonna
Yeah.
yell at whoever didn't say it. I'm just kidding. But like that's the big thing that makes it comfortable. Like it's
Yeah.
uncomfortable, but it makes it like, okay, everybody's looking at the same thing. like, yes, like you said, you're farther along down the road, but we're on, it's, like Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner. We're all looking at
Yeah.
the same exact tunnel, looking to get through to the light,
Yeah.
which is probably a bad way to put that because
That's okay.
we're
I
all
know what
going
you're
to
saying.
die. But you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
we're all
Yeah.
looking, okay, hey, like you and Brad, you guys are one of the, two of the furthest guys along the road where it's like, hey guys, pothole on the right, pothole on the left, you know, skip over this, like
Yeah.
you just said, like, and you guys are very confident in doing that, and it's great.
Yeah.
It's wild to
And
me.
what's cool about for you especially and obviously other new agents is we can get you to where you want to be quicker than where we got, right? What took
Yeah,
us 3 or 4 years might take you one or
yeah,
less, right? Because yeah, everything's expedited. It's like, hey, do XYZ, the systems, processes are and everything are there. When I joined, it was like, hey, here's your script. This is where you buy leads. Good luck,
yep.
right? And there was none
Brad
of what we have.
Bloomquist said
So
almost the same thing.
yeah,
He said, like almost verbatim, like
that's funny.
that it was just, he was like, I joined in and they were like, here's your script. This is what we sell. Good luck.
Yep.
You know,
Yep. Figure
and
it out. Yep.
yeah, and I asked him this, and I'll ask you this too, because I know you've been around for a little bit, about as long as he is. I know he's been a
Yep.
little bit longer, but not
Yeah, a little
much.
bit longer than me, but yeah.
Um, how much influence did you have, in the changing of how things were done for new agents?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I feel like I had a big influence as well. There's kind of a core, leadership team, here with us.
Mhm.
There's Brad Blumquist, myself, Jimmy Rustin, and Chris Holt, and we're really the longest standing, team here. So,
Yeah.
if there's ever something that Bradley needs or whatnot, we're considered the kind of that core leadership team. So, really when it comes to like the Lightspeed videos, right? I've recorded some of those, and the other three names I mentioned also recorded some, right? And so many different things, but it's we're in the trenches every day, so we see what's needed there. Plus, we have the benefit of the captain Brad Lee
Yep.
understanding that and being a very smart business guy to always kind of have that pulse on the business. So I feel like I brought a lot of value on that side as well, and yeah, yeah, no, I definitely feel that.
That's awesome. And we're going to kind of piggyback slash backtrack a little bit. We were talking kind of a little bit about new agents, kind of the quote unquote chain of command training wise, right? Um, what do you think the biggest mistake that a young agent makes when they first start in?
Yeah, I think that they just feel like, especially this day and age, everybody wants instant gratification. They want it now, right? The same day shipping from
Same
Amazon,
answer.
right? I need it right now,
I
right?
loved it.
So yeah, so I think that not giving it enough time, right? I talk a lot with new agents, especially, but just in general, you've heard many of my training calls. I talk
Oh
about
yeah.
time lag, right? So if I'm having a conversation, let's say I had a lead come in and I make a call to them and we schedule an appointment, it's like we're not going to necessarily close that deal usually on that first case, right? It's like what I'm doing right now is my deals really in a month, 2 months, 3 months, right? And it's really that stickability. And Andrew Taylor talks about this a lot. He didn't really start seeing a lot of success till about 6 years in, right? And so he really mentioned like the reason he was successful was because he just stayed around long enough for that success to catch
Mhm.
up to all the input and actions that he put in, right? So I think it's just not giving it enough time and also not being coachable, right? If somebody comes in and thinks they know everything or they're not able to be like a sponge or take criticism or whatever, right? I think those are kind of the two main things. And that goes back to the point I said of like, join up part-time, right? Get your
Mhm.
license, start kind of working through our system and process, start getting some of those early wins. And as you see it work, it just starts compounding on itself, right? You just put that consistency
Mhm.
and that action in. And at a point, it could be 3 months, 6 months, maybe long, shorter, longer, whatever it is. But at a point, you're going to hit that stride of consistency where you're like, okay, I'm making 8 grand, I'm making 10 grand or whatever, plus or a little less or whatever it is. But then you look at your 9 to 5 that you're putting in 40, 50, 60 hours a week in, and you're making 5 grand or 6 grand. You're like, okay, I can sell two, three, basic policies and make very similar money. And then now as you get more and more knowledge, now we're training you on more advanced products, right? IULs, annuities, and most of these annuities that I'm doing are paying minimum maybe 10 or 15,000, but there's been plenty I've done that paid 25, 35, 50,000 plus per deal. And yeah, that's a longer sales cycle. I might do three, four, five, six Zooms with this person, right? But at the same time, as that starts stacking over time, it's just kind of crazy how much you can make, but you're also solving bigger problems, right?
Yeah.
So most don't start on annuities, right? That's again, you got to
Oh
kind
yeah.
of get to that for the most part. But it's all, there's different levels, there's different things, and now that goes again back to the path example we were talking about. I'm just farther down the path, and I can tell you exactly what products to talk to with XYZ client and how they work, and here's how you do the illustration, here's how I present it, here's blah blah blah, right? And so you
Yeah.
get all the benefit of that. And same thing for everybody you're hiring, and as things go continue down, right? It just gets more and more optimized and very blueprint and systematic focused.
Yeah. And on that point too, like, obviously, like, I thought Larry put it the best way. Like, yeah, we do get paid, but Larry, and you can absolutely vouch for this, 'cause you have a very close relationship with him. He had told me, he was like, I look at it like I'm doing it, I'm helping my community. Like, we talked about at the start of this. We're not doing it just for the money.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Right. And I just always kind of looked at it like that, where it's like, like that's trying to figure out how I can articulate this the right way, but it's, just like what you said, like we're always trying to do it the right way. Like you're learning from everybody else onto you. Like, just that give it like I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of how I can say it better than you can, but I really can't.
Yeah,
So
no, and I think one kind of way I'll say this as well is money is the byproduct of the value we're bringing, right? So we lead, just kind again goes
yeah,
back to leading with the value, and most entrepreneurs or most people are just chasing the money, and they wonder why they don't have it. They wonder why it's slipping through their hands, and they get so stressed out. And I'm not saying that I don't get stressed, right? I mean, it's probably a human thing, right? But I'm just saying like if you just are leading with that value and just have the consistency time and time again, the time's going to pass anyways, right? And so if you just lead with that, the money does follow as you bring more value, and it can
yeah,
be counterintuitive,
and
So no,
yeah,
you're good. Go
and
ahead.
where I was gonna go, it was more like kind of like what you said, where it's like you start making a little bit of money, and you're going, man, I'm making double for at most, like just worst case scenario, let's say 3 hours of work than I am doing 40 to 45 hours.
Yeah.
Like that's I feel like that's a big thing that a lot of people think is going to happen like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes
You
time.
know,
It takes time. But there's that what's called the law of exposure. Once you're exposed, you can't be unexposed. So
yeah,
a lot of people that are new to the industry or new to business, they again they kind of have that, oh, it needs to happen now, or
yeah,
I'm just gonna go back to what I'm doing, or they get scared or whatever it is, which is all again normal human emotions. But if you just naturally put in the time and do the right thing, the byproduct will be that money. And
mhm,
you'll really find with being then exposed to, oh, I only had to put in 3 hours and I made a similar amount, or maybe you made a little less, maybe you made half what you make at 60 hours or 50 hours,
yeah,
but you work 3 or 5 or 10 hours. Well, okay,
exactly,
now you don't, let's say you got rid of the other, let's say you were working 40 hours, you got rid of the other 30 there. Now you got 30 more hours. So if you made half the amount in 10 hours, what do you think you'd make if you just put 40 hours in, right? You
exactly,
double the amount, right, that you were making. So you start optimizing your time. And then with that, that's your personal side. Now you're building a team, and they're starting to kill it. Okay, you've got your personal
now
production
everything's
plus
right.
your overrides, right? And being like, yeah, I am usually number one or number two, which does feel good to, of course, sell and be like that.
Yeah.
But I'm leading from the front. That's my whole
Oh,
thing, is
100%.
I'm showing people that I'm doing it, right. I'm not just, not a theory thing. It's not, oh, do this
Yeah.
and it's going to work. It's like, no, I'm doing it. Do this.
Yep.
Here's the blueprint. Do it, and, and you should get the similar same results.
So I want to make, yeah, I want to rephrase how I said that. Like, it's not like you're just doing it yourself and not telling us how to do it. That's
Yeah.
not at all what like, just for anybody listen, that if it came off like that, my apologies,
Oh
but
no, it
it's
didn't. It
not at
didn't.
all. But
Yeah.
I've always looked at it. So, little backstory for me. I think I told you, like, I used to play hockey.
Yeah.
Uh, Grew up in Detroit, so Steve Yzerman was my idol as a kid. And he, we call him the all hockey fans, he's called the captain. He was the most lead by example dude, legend, right? And I remember telling my dad when I first signed on, I'm like, this guy's like Steve Eiserman. And he's like, when he was like, because he'll talk when he wants to, and everybody stops and listens when he talks.
That's
And that
awesome.
was always the famous stories with Steve Eiserman. Is like, he didn't say much. He wasn't going out of his way to tell you what to do. He was just going to go do it. But if you said, "Hey, Stevie, what are you doing?" Like, famously, and anybody that thinks I'm lying can look this up. This is well documented stuff about Steve Eiserman. They'd be like, he'd be 35, already a Hall of Fame hockey player, one of the greatest that ever did it, and be out, you know, 30, 45 minutes early to practice at 35 years old, and everybody else being like, well, shit, if he's doing it, what's expected of me?
Yeah.
And I've always looked at you in that kind of same elk of like, yeah, he tells you, like, and he ain't gonna call you, just make sure you're doing it. Like, you're either doing it or you're
Yeah.
not. If you need help, you go to him. Just like they would
Yeah.
say with him, they'd be like, "Hey man, what are you doing different?" And he'd be like, "Oh, well, I do this, this, and this." Like, like, he wouldn't hold your hand. And I've always looked at you in that same elk, and I'm not trying to brown nose. Like, it just, that's the kind
Yeah. No, I
of
appreciate it. Yeah.
respect of
Thank
how
you.
you do things, because that's how I always did things.
Yeah. That's
So,
awesome. I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
yeah, no problem. So I got one more question for you, and I know we're running a little long here.
Yeah. No
Um,
worries.
Actually, I got one business question and then a personal one.
Okay.
What is what is your biggest lesson? Obviously this question's a little bit different for you than I mean, it's a little different for everybody, but in your entire life, you've spent most of your life as a businessman, an entrepreneur. Um, what would you say that your biggest lesson has been, either real financial, like when you were just starting out your business, when everything was doing good, before real financial, and then obviously, with real financial, like, where do you think that biggest lesson came from for you?
Yeah, this is tough to just narrow it to one thing. I think there's a combination, and you can almost think of it as a recipe, or like some guidelines in a sense, right?
Hmm.
So the first thing that came to mind when you asked the question, so I'll say it this first, but I want to add some additional, is the worst somebody can say is no. Okay. And I think that's what has
Yeah,
had me be so successful in business and just general life and friendships and whatever, right? Is because I'm not scared to ask for something. And what do they say? No. Okay, what happened? Nothing. Life just goes on, right? So that was something
same as if you
that
didn't ask.
yeah, exactly. Same as if you didn't ask, right? So that's the same thing. My dad taught me this growing up. Worst they could say is no, right? So I think that's what's kind of really made me successful there. Now, when we talk about just general business, I mean that obviously goes, with that, but just kind of generally in business is don't don't get shiny object syndrome, right? The grass is not greener. Okay. Going to this company or that company. I mean, you're still the main variable in that, equation, right? So the grass isn't always greener. So you need to really stick things out. You need to give it the right time. There's a saying like, be quick to make a decision and slow to change, right? And not change in a bad way, but change is inevitable. Personal growth is a choice. And that's a Bob Proctor quote, right? Change is inevitable, but personal growth is a choice. So if you can continue to focus on positivity, focus on feeding your mind with great things, business and personal, and meditate and spend a lot of family time, right? Like you need to have kind of these core things that allow you to have clarity, but also have focus, right? If you're trying to spin so many different plates or chase so many different rabbits, you're going to catch none of them, right? So be slow to change, but still, change and be coachable. Where somebody can say is no, and just keep the small things small. Okay, if you don't need to make a big deal about stuff. There's a book. Called Getting to Neutral, right? There's a saying that I always say is this too shall pass, right? The good things, closing $1 million annuity, right? This too shall pass, right? A month of not didn't close anything, right? Which doesn't really happen, but I'm just saying, like, if it was a bad thing or this or that, or you had a flat tire or whatever, right? Like, if it's flat tire, okay, yeah, fix the flat tire. It's frustrating, well, blah blah blah, but it's a small thing, right? Keep the small things small. If I wake up in the morning, my family's all healthy, I've won, right? And especially because I
Mhm.
woke up. And if I didn't, well, then I know I'm in heaven with God, so I'm all good. But what I'm just saying is, be optimistic, be coachable, don't be scared of a no. Put yourself out there, right? If nobody knows what you're doing, they're not gonna you're not going to get anywhere, right? Like, we're not in high school, that you don't got to be worried about what people think. Like, be yourself. And that goes back to how Bradley's been so successful, with social media, for example, is people are scared to post, right? And if I still sometimes, I'm like, I think I told you this on one of my base shop calls, or all of everybody. I was like, there's
Mhm.
sometimes I'm about to post a quote or a video, and I kind of get that initial, like, oh, should I post this? And
Yep.
right when I think that, I just click post, right? Because
Yep.
it's a mental block that, you just got to just do it, right? And, oh, what, Johnny Pants 372 leaves a bad comment, cool, whatever, right? Like, it's not a big deal, so yeah,
They're gonna
I,
like
I
it
I
or
know it was
not.
more than just one thing. Yeah, exactly. And if they don't, they're not part of who I'm trying to even talk to anyway. So
Right.
whatever, right? There's 300 million plus Americans, right? Like, I got plenty of people to talk with. I don't care. So yeah. So I know you asked for one thing, but I think there's so many things that come to mind. So
No,
yeah.
hey, that's perfect because everybody's answer to that is different.
Yep.
Everybody has a different life story. Everybody's got a different
Yep.
experience of that one thing. Like your story is gonna be different than Larry's, which is different than Brad's and Terry's
Yep.
and Derek's and mine and whoever.
Yep.
Everybody's got that one thing or those multiple things that just kind of compounded into one, that kind of gets you to where you want to be, I guess is a way to
Yep.
put it.
Yep.
So why don't you go ahead and just tell everybody, your social media stuff, like where can everybody find you, uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. All of them are at Evan Schlang. So EvanSchlang. So, yep.
All right, that's beautiful. Evan, again, I appreciate it so much for you coming and doing this for me, and
Yeah,
obviously
thank you for the
yourself
invite.
as well. So
Yeah,
everybody needs to go find Evan. He does post great stuff. If you're a Star Wars fan, go back to the beginning of the video, find that Instagram. I follow it. It's good stuff.
I love it. I love
Uh,
it.
and again, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody, we will see you guys next time.
Bye.